the more emboldened Taliban is also because Americans decided to come fight a 20-year war at the end of it, leave it all to the Taliban, right? So we cannot ignore the fact of how destabilizing a factor American influence is in places like this. It's for some reason, whether it's with Iran, whether it's with Afghanistan or Pakistan, a lot of these discussions become so devoid of history that as if all of a sudden overnight some sort of monster is created, and then that monster needs to be fight by the good powers of
the West.
It's not the first time that Pakistan has conducted airstrikes in Afghanistan, right? In Afghan territories, in peripheral territories, these airstrikes have been conducted since the Afghan Taliban came into power. What's interesting is that airstrikes were conducted in Kandahar and Kabul this time. Kandahar is the birthplace of the Taliban.
I think one of the most obvious things that explains the change for me is at the same time as Pakistan is waging this war in Afghanistan, in the international space, it is being seen as a potential mediator of another conflict, right? That tells you how much it's a free-for-all right now, where it's a transactional world where whatever you can offer to the big powers is what matters, and that covers for whatever you do in what is considered your backyard, where you have free range of what you can do. And that is what the Pakistani military is doing in Afghanistan right now.
At the risk of sounding like, the right wing of India, I have maintained this position, when I visited Pakistan and spent some time talking to people there. It's not a serious country in the sense that it is not this one cohesive country with an administration. At least when I went there, Bukti was still alive. He apparently used to, even the Pakistani administration could not go there to get taxes. Balochistan is where Bukti was, right? He had his own prisons, his own legal system. It was a free-for-all. So, at least Musharraf was alive at that time. Said Musharraf is the CEO of Islamabad, Lahore and Karachi. That is the Pakistan he's CEO of. Everybody else is doing their own thing. So, it's still not a serious country in that sense.
So the only thing that the Taliban have been able to do in return is send some drones. Where they got those drones from, nobody knows. There have been some analysis done of, Chinese, Turkish, but kamikaze drones that basically can travel 100, 150, 200 kilometers into Pakistan, drop some explosives. They've done it.
Does Galgotia University have a branch over there?
I know. In this new expansion of India Taliban ties, we don't know if there's been a branch.
Galgotia Afghanistan branch do exist?
I guess India has been making these overtures over the past year or so to be quite pally with the Afghan Taliban to sort of set up embassies, some sort of relationships and so on and so forth. So is there any role that India would play here at all either? Or
when you say, does America have any skin in the game? No, it doesn't. But it's the mess that it's created now. Let's not forget the image of an Afghan man hanging on to the airplane when Americans left Afghanistan. The Americans are very keen to save women in Iran, but it's been 6 years that Afghan women have been banned from not just schools, but public life essentially, and it doesn't seem to bother Americans right now. But also, I would say American priorities have changed. Their conflict in Europe, West Asian conflict has sort of taken precedence, so there's not that.
Greenland भी जाना है. अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of NL Hafta from yet again a very hill station feels Delhi, which we didn't think would last. But today is a very special hafta because our team member from Chennai, who you have seen only on Zoom joining us for the last 7 years or so, is here in the studio. Jayashree.
Woohoo! Yes, what a great studio it is, guys. I wish you were all here to see it. The last time I was here, this was nothing but tables.
Yeah, we had a huge dining
and there was a sad little corner where you would do your nuisance. And then there were just...
Right here.
Yeah.
And all this has happened because you guys supported us, and from a sad little dining table type studio, we became like a proper studio. So here's a QR code that you can see flashing next to my face. You can help us become bigger, better, have more correspondents, maybe a studio in 3 different states so we can do regional media, and maybe 3 correspondents in every state So you can scan this QR code or you can click on the link below. I saw many people asking questions on Instagram that if this is the QR code and I'm on my phone, what do I press? What do I scan? Well, you can open your laptop or you can come to our website and click on the link. Subscribe, pay to keep news free, because when you pay, you are served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. When Patanjali pays, Patanjali is served. And the big A's pay, the big A's are served. And Sarkari ads pay, the Sarkari ads are served. With that, let me introduce our panel. And on popular demand, because many people said we haven't discussed the Afghanistan-Pakistan situation.
Yes.
That is what we're going to be dedicating today to. In the studio, Mujib Mashal. Thank you for making the time, Mujib.
Thank you.
Those of you who've been following Newslaundry may have already seen him on Media Rumble. You've done one Media Rumble or two? One. So, just for the formal introduction, Mujib is a journalist and international correspondent known for his in-depth reporting on South Asia. He serves as South Asia Bureau Chief for the New York Times. He covers politics, conflict, social issues across the region with a particular focus on Afghanistan and India. Mashal is widely recognized for his ground reporting during major events such as the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, bringing nuance to the on-ground perspective to global audiences. We shall see if that's true or not. Also joining us is Manisha Pande, award-winning journalist, who is also the editorial director.
I think we should stop. Award-winning reminds me, we should tell our audience that we won a Ramnath Goenka Award.
Yes!
Yes.
We have...
Mine is two way back in 2016. We won this year.
This week, we our wonderful correspondent, we very confidently say we have won the award. It has been won by all of you because you supported a fantastic journalist who we are proud to have on our team.
Basant Kumar.
Basant. And the report he won it for was the one on...
It was an investigation into the claim by Modi government in the run-up to elections that farmers' incomes have doubled. They came out with a booklet. So he went and met all the farmers on the booklet and found out that...
Can you just tell our audience how many farmers do you think he met?
He would have met he went to at least 2 places, and then we did a whole series across India. So his was in Haryana, if I'm not mistaken, and he would have met at least 10 to 15.
In Haryana, and then he met some in UP as well?
Then we had correspondents from TNM.
I think the story that he won for was from Uttar Pradesh.
Uttar Pradesh.
Yeah,
yes.
So where he went, I think he met at least 50, 60 farmers and he spoke to each of them, and then they said, and I quote, it is 100% not true.
So going and meeting 50 to 60 farmers across a state as large as UP, think about how much effort, time, resources that takes. We have had a colleague who has sat here maybe a decade ago, who now you see as an intellectual in different panels, say that journalism should be a side gig. It cannot be a main gig. These people don't understand what it takes. That's why when many of you call me a journalist, I say, please don't call me a journalist. I'm management. I don't go on the ground anywhere. That's what journalism costs. So here's the QR code again. Click on the link or scan the QR code. But I was doing the introduction because I also wanted to introduce Jayashree, so Mujib can be warned right at the outset. Also joining us is Jayashree, our CEO. The E can be anything, engagement, enterprise, who is well known.
It has been for at least a year and a bit. It's supposed to be CCO, and then every single time you come up with a new definition for it.
But that's fine. We're fluid like that.
Fine.
We're a fluid organization. Who is well known for her nuanced take as a desk editor in adding fact checks and nuance to stories, and a radical takes against anti-imperialist America, and Mujib be won against the New York Times and Washington Post.
He's sitting all the way across there's a good distance between us. I think it's fine.
So with that, also joining us later in this show would be Aishwaria Sonavane. I hope I pronounced that correctly. We will know when she's here. Aishwaria is a research analyst for Pakistan studies at the Takshashila Institution. Her work focuses on counter-militancy, security, foreign policy, military-political nexus, and defense, with a broader regional emphasis on Afghanistan, India, and Pakistan. So before we get into the discussion, the headlines, Jayashree, are you doing the honors since you're here? And Manisha is sitting with no laptop, not a care in the world.
She didn't bring the
Abhinandan
laptop
and Jayashree will take care of this. We have seen wall-to-wall coverage of the Iran conflict, what's happening in Gaza. But this has kind of got overshadowed. I kind of inform myself a little bit about this before I hosted 2 experts. So one is Pakistan was an ally of this Taliban when they were in the opposition. And in fact, there have been specific instances where they have helped them out. And two, once they came to power, this kind of hostility has become more and more. There were some early incidents which did not get this kind of traction until this horrific bombing of the rehab center. So before we go to the specifics of what's happening right now, can you just put this in context from a historical perspective, Aishwaria?
The Afghan Taliban has essentially inherited all the problems that Afghan state has had with Pakistan, be it the conflict with the Durand line, be it the rejection of the separation of borders between the Pashtun regions on both sides. The Taliban says that these Pashtun communities, they don't recognize the Durand line. The separation of this Pashtun, so-called Pashtunistan land. Also, Pakistan wants a government or an administration in Kabul that denies India any strategic space. Pakistan, it's a real concern in Islamabad of a strategic encirclement from Afghanistan and from India.
But they've never had that, right? They've never had an Afghanistan that is closer to Pakistan than India.
They never have had that. And when the Taliban came into power in 2021, Imran Khan called it that Afghanistan has finally broken the shackles of slavery. We saw the then ISI chief sit in Kabul and have coffee with the Taliban.
This Pakistan Taliban stuff that has been playing out just blows one's mind. The Taliban that are in power in Afghanistan is essentially trained in Pakistani madrasas. They had years, over the past 20 years, they had safe havens in Pakistan where they got enormous support from the Pakistani ISI to be able to wage their insurgency in Afghanistan against the American-backed government, right? At that time, too, again, there's a consistency to sort of the double game that the Pakistani state played. At that time, while they were harboring the anti-American insurgents, they still had a deep relationship with the Americans. So, and they managed to get away with it. That at the end of when that republic fell in Afghanistan and the Americans essentially lost the war and left, a Pakistan that is still an ally of the Americans, that remained an ally of the Americans throughout that period, declared victory. There is the guy who is the defense minister of Pakistan right now who now sort of declared war against the Taliban. On the day the Americans and the Taliban signed their peace deal in Doha, and I was in Doha watching those proceedings, he was an opposition member of parliament at that time. He put out a tweet essentially saying, Allahu Akbar, we've won.
I was curious to know, Mujib, about the sort of 400 people dead. They bombed a de-addiction center. There is a humanitarian crisis. Are we getting to read enough about it because of what has happened to journalism under Taliban? So what are the kind of stuff, what are your sources for news? Who reports? Because we know Gaza, we know Iran, what's happening there. But to the civilian population in Afghanistan, are there enough stories coming out of what's happening there to people?
So an entire generation of journalists that you may have been reading over the past 20 years or so, I would say majority of them backed and left.
Yeah, and they're all reporting from outside.
They're reporting from outside. But in a lot of those places, you've got a lot of young journalists who stepped in and who are working under extremely difficult conditions to still get out the news. There's a Taliban control over what comes out. You look at the same TV stations and radio stations who are still operating. The optics might be the same, but the language has changed, right? But the reporting is still happening. I feel like we're not hearing a lot about what's happening in Afghanistan is not because information is not coming out. It is because of the way the media information space works. We just move. We just shift. We're hearing about, over the past couple of years, of the restrictions and the awful oppression of what's happening to women in Iran, right?
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, what is happening in Afghanistan is just 100 times worse than that, right?
what are we doing in India? So if you watch the Indian media, there's a lot of celebration. Pakistan ko sabak sikha diya, auqat dikha di Afghanistan ne. So if Indian media is a mirror to what the Prime Minister or the PMO is thinking, then we're really cheering this. I don't know what the truth is, but what are we looking at
What is
in
the
terms
foreign
of
policy?
Yeah, with Afghanistan?
Who's
Especially because we were completely caught off guard, right? When
Jayashankar
Taliban
uncle
first
showing
came.
lal aankh to?
What's our foreign policy with respect to Taliban? I don't think India, of course, India is not ideologically aligned with the Taliban, but ideology doesn't really matter when it comes to Indian foreign policy, because then we wouldn't even have the same ties with West Asia. I think you cannot. India, I think, was just waiting to see if there are any fractures between Pakistan and Afghanistan. We saw that, and that became an entry point. That created a window for India. I remember the timing of Muttaqi's Delhi visit was also a day after Pakistan struck Kabul. There was an airstrike against Noor Wali Mahsood, who's the chief of TTP. So it seemed like it was a calculated move. From where I see this, India only cares about countering China, because since the US left, there is a sort of power vacuum in Afghanistan.
It still feels to me that India is playing catch up. India struggled in that end game of what happened in Afghanistan. It had sort of aligned itself too much with American interests in that last stretch of the war. Whereas, say, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, whether it's Iran, all of them already had built contacts with the Taliban to prepare themselves for a day that actually the Taliban might be the reality of Afghanistan. India was playing a little bit of a black and white game. It had its emotional reasons, because India's diplomatic mission in Kabul was bombed by the Taliban and stuff like that had happened. But if you're playing the geopolitical game in this region, you have to engage with the Greys. And India did not until that republic fell and the Taliban took over. And it took India a couple years actually to catch up. And even now, it only gained momentum once the Pakistan-Taliban relationship started sort of souring, right? But it's a tricky thing for India. Like, does India want to get involved in what's an all-out conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan?
And does Mr. Modi get to pose for a photograph that makes him look cool?
I mean, photos are...
Then it's a yes.
Photos are a difficult thing in Kabul right now, because some Taliban leaders don't like being photographed. They instruct the state TV not to show their images because they think it's haram. So there might be a little bit of a problem there.
Dude,
Modi
that would be...
doesn't
Yeah,
understand
Modi,
at all.
that would be such a cool meeting.
But
no?
I think India's entire, India anyway is bumbling around in its backyard now, but also India's abandonment of BRICS under US pressure or whatever is also one of the reasons why the West Asia crisis is hitting India so hard,
And
right?
BRICS will have future. I think it was a pipe
It
dream.
didn't, but I'm saying to build those relationships because you have to, not because you want to, rather, and not because it makes for a great photo op or a headline or whatever. I think that's something where India has completely dropped the ball. So
I do. It is such a chaotic region and world right now that at a certain point I do actually have sympathy for it. Like, it's very difficult to navigate.
yeah.
But then you see certain moves, like the Prime Minister's visit to Israel right before it was clear there was going to be a war.
The optics
You
of that
cannot
was...
come a day after that and say we've always had a neutral policy towards West Asia, and then then how are you going to call up the Iranians and say let my ships through? They might allow it, but the Iranians are not going to forget.
Yeah.
Because you stood there and it was clear that the guy who's in power there has wanted the destruction of Iran for decades.
But the
right?
clumsiness of just for a sitting Prime Minister to go and say, Ab ki baar Trump sarkar. I mean, that was like bizarre, beyond bizarre.
Firstly, I just want to congratulate everyone again for winning the award on our behalf. The award that Shiv got actually was an NL Sena. And even Basant's award was an NL Sena. It was part of our election coverage of 2024. So the Sena Vasios or the Senanios, how do I?
Senanis.
The Senanis Especially thank you to you guys. Your NL Sena contributions have helped us win awards. And so we urge you again to once again support our endeavor to cover the current elections. We already have Vasu on ground in Assam. He's going to be sending us interviews from there. We have Dhanya's excellent team at News Minute covering Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry. I'll be heading to West Bengal. But we need your support, as always, this election to fund our ground reportage. Please do that. There's a QR code flashing on your screen right now. Please scan it and contribute whatever amount is convenient for you, because not only are you supporting us, but you're also winning awards at the same time.
बस मुफ्त में इतना ही मिलेगा. For the full uncut podcast, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free. The best way to listen to the Hafta and indeed all our podcasts is through the Newslaundry app. You can download the app by clicking on the links given in the show notes. So do download our app and get the best podcast experience. And also pay for news and support a new news media ecosystem that Newslaundry is trying to encourage, where we are accountable to you because we run on contributions that you make. We don't take government ads, we don't take corporations ads, so that news serves the public, because when the public pays, the public is served. Subscribe to Newslaundry, click on the link in the show notes below and proudly say, I pay to keep news free.